Well,
Go.
welcome everyone to the August edition of Lakeside Chats. If you didn't hear my front end intro, this has been a topic that has one that I'm finding myself getting geeky about more regularly than I thought I would. I am a recovering benefits broker. I was a benefits broker prior to joining Lakeside. And so now being away from the benefit broker space, I think I have a different lens on the importance of the topic that benefits need to belong in the workplace. And so today's topic is Lakeside Chats, benefits that belong, perks that matter in today's workforce. And as I said, I've got two amazing voices along with me, Luke and Mychal. I'm going to give you guys a second to introduce yourself here in just a quick second. But before that, I know we've got a couple new people joining Lakeside Chats, and so I want to just make sure we kick off with our basic rules of engagement to make sure you understand sort of the context of how Lakeside Chats work. Luke and Mychal have already been forewarned that this is what I refer to as my underproduced hour of the month. We create a slide deck only to make sure that I've got some constructs to keep me in line, but otherwise, this whole thing could go off we could stop at slide 3 if we really have to. I mean, we're totally fine with that's what we have to do depending on where this conversation goes. So for those of you that have been on, you know that that's the case, and I encourage you to participate accordingly. I will say, as I said on the front end, this is a recorded session. So this is going to be public and made available for people on the back end. So once we get the recording completed, we'll get this loaded to our website for people to be able to download, to review, and listen to our amazing genius again later, or to share with others. So just so you know, this will be posted, and also just remind yourself you're being recorded. Also, I will let you know that anything we talk about on today's conversation, so if there's a book referenced in the slides or the deck itself or contact, if there's a topic or a website that's referenced, I'll capture all that and I'll put that in the follow-up material that you should receive probably about the same time tomorrow. Once we get the slide deck updated to the website, I'll send you the link to the recording, a link to the PowerPoint deck, and then any reference points that we bring up along the way, I'll make sure we get in your hands as follow-up. I get that question all the time, so I feel like I try to kick that one off right away. But this conversation is about you guys as the participants. Luke, and Mike have prepared in the front end of what we want to sort of some ideas as to where we think this conversation might go. But we want you guys to engage as much as possible. So use the chat features functions as much as you can. Hop into chat, use Q&A, raise your hand, celebrate, react, whatever it might be. We want to make sure that we're keeping the engagement as high as possible. I think as many of you have heard along the way, I think the thing that's been the thing I'm most proud of in terms of creating these events is just how active the meeting chats have been and how much you guys are engaging in the conversation beyond what's being said in the webinar itself. But again, we encourage positive discussion and genuine curiosity. One of Lakeside's values is to be curious, and we want to bring that to this conversation as well. Also, Luke, Mychal, I'm going to tell you right now, none of us are the foremost authority on any of the topics. We are just having a conversation about it, right? So there is no right answer, and that's okay. Goal of these sessions are truly just information sharing and conversation starting. And so with that, we're going to kick off. I am going to tell you just a little bit about how I got to know Luke and Mychal. Mychal, I feel like I say Mychal because that's what comes up, but then I've heard other people refer to you as Mike. Which one do you want me to call you throughout today's session to make sure that I stay constant?
Whatever works best for you.
Oh, that's not the answer. Which do you prefer?
We'll use what my mother calls me. She calls me Mike.
Calls you Mike? Okay, Mike,
yep,
it is.
That'll work.
Right. Perfect. We got you, Mike. All right. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of story about how I got to know these two amazing gentlemen. And then I'll let you guys introduce yourself because I am not one that does the weird bio read thing because I find I get uncomfortable when people read mine. And so you can decide what information you want people to know about you. Luke and my paths crossed about a year ago now. We were in a place where enough people were telling us we need to know each other. And so we listened to the people around us that said we need to get to know each other and got to know each other. And met each other at a coffee shop. Weirdly enough, we live about, a half a mile from one another and had never met. And now I'm pretty sure we find ways to make our energies connect as much as possible. Luke, do you want to introduce yourself and Cadre a little bit as well? And then I'll let you talk about it a little bit more at the end as well.
Well, Erin, thank you so much for having me. Mike, you're amazing. I love what Turnsignl's doing. I always have been a big champion of the work you guys are doing for years. My name is Luke Wendlandt. I've been in the behavioral health space for 12 years now. I got the opportunity to work at an organization called Hazel and Betty Ford Foundation. I ultimately started my own residential treatment programs called North Star Behavioral Health. I've been a partner in a couple developmental disabilities companies, etc. And now I started Cadre, and Cadre is in its third 3.5 years of existence. And our job here at Cadre is to scale mental health services for employers and all the amazing people we call employees. So that's what we're here to do.
Awesome. Well, Mike, now that I know what I'm supposed to make sure that we're on the informal space, Mike and I got introduced actually through one of a former colleague of mine and now one of Mike's colleagues now that he's been working with through the lens of how long you guys have been around. I met you guys originally when I was on the broker side when you guys were initially launching, and very similar to what Luke just said, has been enamored, I think is probably the best word for following the story of Turnsignl and the founder story of what you guys have built. So I've been really fortunate to feel like I've been able to be a part of or seen it from the beginning and watched where it's gone for 5 years in terms of being this thing that was started and founded in Minnesota with a couple of attorneys and now is moving to multiple states and knocking on nationwide. But Mike, do you want to do a little intro to yourself and a little bit about Turnsignl as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, good morning, everyone. And first and foremost, I'm excited that all of you all are here, right? You could be anywhere this morning, and so you decided to be here with us, and that's really intentional. I'm excited to be here and share some of my learnings over the last 5 years in starting Turnsignl. But before I get into that, again, my name is Mychal Frelix, co-founder and chief operating officer of Turnsignl, a company that is poised to make sure that we're providing peace of mind to every driver that's on the road. And so, funny backstory. Luke and I, this is I think our second time, maybe our third time being on a panel together, and it's always amazing and fun to be on it. But even thinking about Erin now, Erin joining up with us. Erin was one of the first people we talked to at Turnsignl when we were thinking about offering this as an employee benefit, and some of that insight that she's been able to share, you'll be able to see through some of these discussions. And so, full circle moment, really excited to be here. And I think at some point my wife is joining. We won't call her out today, but really excited.
I make no
special day.
I make no promises. You might very well get called out along the way. Well, thank you guys both. Again, I'm Erin Hargrove. I'm the Director of Business Development with Lakeside HR Group, and happy to share more about what we do along the way as well. But this is just one of the many things that we're doing to be able to build community as an organization that really wants to make sure we're thinking about how any size business is providing and offering HR support, whether it's from recruiting all the way through compliance. So let's kick it off, because again, I like to sort of start it with the idea of getting everyone talking with a chat question. So the conversation today is benefits that belong. And so I want you to think about what's one benefit or perk that you've received from any job you've had that actually made you feel seen or supported. And I use this with the idea that like benefits is a big bucket, right? Obviously, you could just say I got a paycheck, and that would say you felt seen and supported, and that totally is the right answer. But I want to just ask you guys, Luke, Mike, what would you say? Luke, go first. Kind of is there a benefit you've received when you weren't your own boss? Which I know now you have to think back a couple years, where you felt seen or supported?
I'd say there's two, and I'm going to go on the farthest end of the continuum, and then like the smallest end of the continuum, if you will, like the biggest impact and the smallest impact, but both of them mattered equally, right? So the first one was when my wife gave birth to our son, Drew, beautiful Drew, who's now 12 years old. And when she had maternity leave, and her maternity leave was for 12 weeks. And I had paternity leave through an organization called Thomson Reuters for 8. And I thought that was the coolest thing, that I was able to be there with my wife and support and with our new son. So that's number one, without a doubt. Like I could not even feel more seen, supported, all the things. The other one was, call it 11 years ago, somewhere on that ballpark. I was working for Hazel and Betty Ford Foundation at Hazleton. I was going through a little bit of some stuff that we'll talk about later. I leave no bones about it. My story is I have generalized anxiety disorder, panic attacks. I used alcohol to cope through depression and all the things. And my manager told me about an EAP plan. And that was the first time, and I hopefully it's okay when I say this, I was like, what the hell is an EAP? Like, what is an employee assistance program? Like, what does that mean? Like, well, you actually have, 12 offerings, you can call and you can do it. And I'll never forget, I called and I hung up. I picked up the phone, I called, and then I hung up and I was like, I don't feel comfortable. And I just hung up the phone. But regardless, to know that like that exists and that was out there was still a good thing. But so those are the two for me.
Yeah. Well, and Mike, so I think I would love to hear your answer, and I'm hoping you guys are paying attention to the chat too. So EAP was mentioned already, birthday, holidays, remote work, paid STD. I mean, this is great. I feel like the diversity of even what we're seeing is a true testament to the topic. So Mike, what would you say? Is there a top or a benefit you can think of?
Yeah, actually think back to, I think it was 2015, and I was working for a software company out in Bloomington, and this perk was unique, and I think a lot of us probably have this perk at our current jobs, or you have them at your house. But the employer that I was working with actually brought in a foosball table. And you're probably thinking like, okay, a foosball table, but this is one of the benefits that I remember to this day. And when they brought this foosball table, it was a kind of in a time where like I was newer employee. I didn't know a whole lot of people there, but they were very intentional about us leveraging this foosball table throughout the day, right? And so what that did is it created this kind of sense of community where folks would come in and take quick breaks and play a quick game of foosball, and we'd have tournaments, right? But all of this was building up was that sense of belonging, and really, and I've just never forget how excited I was to like be able to go and have the share this time with my employees or with some of the colleagues that I had. And so that's one that I think of when when you're thinking about benefits and you're thinking about culture. Sometimes it's the small things that people remember: benefits,
Sure.
health, vision, dental. Those things are relatively standard these days, right? And we've seen the evolution of that, but it's those small perks I think that can really add up and create a meaningful and impactful culture.
Yeah. The one that came to mind for me, I worked for at the time it was a financial aid provider, and they saw leadership in me. And they made the recommendation that I get my master's, reminded me that they had tuition reimbursement as a benefit. And that to me was one of those first times that I felt not only seen as the employer, like for my potential, but then also as a reminder that they had benefits to support that potential as well, was where my mind went originally when I, wrote the slide. Well, good. And thank you all. I think, like I said, to me, the concept that I'm seeing so much diversity, even in the answers that we're seeing, is a true testament to why this is such an important topic. All right. So I'm not a history buff, but I do like to understand why things are the way they are. And so I'm doing a quick history lesson here, people, on the history of employee benefits, why they exist and why they keep changing. So the concept of employee benefits really started only as far back as the Industrial Revolution, when large enterprises were like, hey, we need to make sure we need to find employees, so we're going to give them a housing allowance. And then that sort of stabilized their workforce, right? They needed to be able to create institutional knowledge, and that was the original goal. You sort of look forward, and I don't need to talk through every one of these parts of the timeline, but everything from post-baby or post-war boom, where that's only, so it's only been about 100 years, less than 100 years, that healthcare, retirement, paid time off have been a thing. Then you looked at even just like the tech boom, right? The 1990s, 20,000 or 2000s. That's when pensions went away. And so you sort of this evolution of how people use and get and spend their money post-retirement becomes a thing. That's also when just only the length of time that we started to see lifestyle or sort of flexible work be seen as a benefit. And then you look to today, And we start to think about the fact that like benefits are more, to your point, Mike, the concept of culture. There is the idea of inclusivity in terms of why we're designing benefits. And I think both of your benefits sort of speak to that piece of it. The concept, and Mike, Luke, you're well aware of this, right? That mental health wasn't a benefit that was even remotely highlighted. Even you look just one generation back, or even one section of the timeline back, mental health wasn't even a part of the storyline. And so we call out sort of the recognition that history is the part of the reason that things have evolved. But ultimately, employee benefits have always been a business strategy, right? The concept of having employee benefits, the idea of offering a benefit, was this concept of like, we either need to find employees, keep employees, we need employees to stay here for a long time. We need employees to recognize that they want to stay here, over there. And they've just evolved in terms of how people have evolved, in terms of how people value their work and their lives. I was having that conversation. I posted this, I know, online, but just the other day with our intern that was here, because he was asking kind of where this topic came from and why this was an important topic. And I mentioned, just similar to him, if I look back at when I started, 20 plus years ago in the workplace, the first thing they said to you is things like, hey, check, we offer healthcare, but you should really check before you pick a healthcare provider if your doctor is in network, right? Making sure that that doctor that you see is in network. You see a doctor once a year, right? And that was the important thing to check. That was sort of like that big reminder that they told you during open enrollment. Now, when we consider mental health, even for example, or Mike, you can even just say how often you get in your car. The idea of the thing that you use all the time is really the thing you now need to be considering, right? I'd be right now in a place where I would be more apt to take a benefit because my therapist was in network and not my doctor, because I see my therapist more regularly than I see my doctor. And so we talk about sort of this evolution of benefits has happened because of what's being normalized and what people are valuing. So thank you for letting me go down a history lesson here, people. All right, so the concept of it has always been with the idea of belonging, right? You want something that you get because you belong, you're now part of something else. So question to the room, right? So what's one benefit that you designed differently starting today? And not everyone can say healthcare. Mike, you go first. What would be one benefit that you would redesign starting today, knowing that if belonging was the goal?
I'll actually start with a recent story. I was talking with a large healthcare client, and they were going through kind of their annual survey, and through their survey, they get all these amazing metrics. And so I asked the question. I said, how are you? Do you have any questions in this survey around like safety? And their answer back was like, hold on, I've never really thought about that. And so we went down this pathway and said, so what do you mean? And so I'm like, safety, like how they're feeling. Are they feeling safe in their workplace? Are they feeling safe when they're leaving their workplace? Are they feeling safe wherever they are, right? And they never really thought about this concept of safety. And so they actually added this question in later on, and they were blown away. And this healthcare client specifically was saying, um, when our nurses and our doctors are leaving at different times of the night, they actually don't feel as safe, right? And so they started thinking through, what additional benefits can we add? And so they're thinking about, security. They're also thinking about, safety of information. So I know they were going to implement some ID theft detection, right? And so there's all sorts of little benefits. And I think a lot of employers have this unique opportunity specifically around safety, right? I started asking those questions about how folks are feeling, whether they're within the workplace or they're taking their kids to a basketball tournament or dance recital on the weekend, right? We saw this evolution of benefits, but what really stuck out to me is that employers play such a key role in terms of like public health. And so it's important to, again, ask those questions around, how can we make you the best person? And then in turn, organizations will tend to benefit from that. And so a long-winded answer, but I think safety is a benefit
Yeah.
as a benefit is something that's really important in that, we evaluate at Turnsignl on a day-to-day basis, and we have organizations with on a day-to-day basis, but I think organizations have a lot of opportunity in that area.
I think that's totally a good call. I would tell you though that the voters are in. If you're not paying attention to the chat, apparently women's health wins like by a landslide. No one else is even chiming in, but the concept, and you're singing to a choir, Rachel. I am 46 years old and couldn't sleep last night. So I am living on a wish and a prayer right now, just based on the fun and exciting element of perimenopause myself. So thank you for calling out women's health as something that I feel like definitely is a place that we might want to start designing differently. Summer, I love your answer too, with the idea of real life financial planning. Giving people a paycheck and then hoping they're doing it right. And then saying, okay, also, but we'll give you some money also at the end when you're done working here. But in the meantime, not helping and supporting people along the way. I 100% agree with both of those. Luke, what would you add? We've got safety, we've got women's health, we've got financial planning. These are all really good ones. Luke, what would you add?
I would add, I think this is a little chicken or the egg, and bear with me when I say this. If you've worked for somebody that really, really cares about you, the benefits are like an additional plus one, right? And if you work for somebody that, there's a reason why there's the stat of like 79% of all mental health is directly correlated to your boss or supervisor, right? So 8 out of 10 individuals, their mental health is affected directly by their boss, supervisor, or leader. So if you take a step back and you think about it, are we putting ourselves in the best position of success first? Because really at the end of the day, in owning and operating businesses over the better part of the best decade or greater, it really comes down to like, the work is not the hardest part here. Life is the hard part. Life is the challenge. We have individuals dealing with perimenopause. My wife, I've went through a bunch of stuff. Everybody on this call is going through something. Caregiving, son, dealing with neurodiversity, whatever that might be. So how can we show up for other people better at our companies? Checkbox one. Checkbox one. How can we have more empathy, compassion, love, support? I would say out care and out love. If you do those two things, the rest of the benefits are going to be like, they're going to be viewed in such a different light because you care. You care about your people. So yeah. I could go into this Erin rabbit hole in a very different way, but it comes down to like, just out love and out care for your fellow teammates. And then all of the rest of the benefits can come into place. And if people need extra love, extra support to get what they need and how they need to, they know they can reach out to anybody on the team, their manager, their supervisor, you name it. Right. And I see like we implemented Maven Menopause, phenomenal organization doing wonderful things. Right. Yeah. Somebody else might jump in and say, Kavira, this. Well, why is your experience so great? Because there's a culture of people that care and support and give to you. So that's just, in my humble opinion, that's belonging 101.
No, I think this is great. And I think the conversation that's happening in chat is great. I think what you both added is perfect at the same time, because one, I think it just shows the evolution, right? It shows this evolution of how employers do recognize the role that they play when it comes to an employee's entire well-being, right? We've done all sorts of elements. There's all of the facts and figures that are out there that talk about how many hours a day we spend with our coworkers versus hours a day we spend with our loved ones. And if we don't really hone in on the fact that that needs to be a part of it. And I love the out care, out love element to it, because I think that's a part of it. And I think at the same time too, Mychal, that out care, out love comes from a place of feeling safe and feeling heard and feeling recognized. And so I think that there's this beautiful thread in terms of what you guys are sharing. So thank you. That was.
Erin, can I add just one quick thing?
Of course you can.
And I'm sure we all kind of came from the generation where our mom and dads, my mom did have feelings. I mean, they both did, but my mom showed her feelings. My dad did not, ever. Like he never showed those feelings, and it was just work, and feelings were kind of put on the wayside. So like as a mid-40, business leader, like I had to transform kind of your life experiences to say, if I show up like that, I'm not going to meet the generational demands that exist for the new individuals coming into our workforce, right? You've got to morph and tweak and change to make sure that you can deliver what the next generation of the workforce actually wants and why they want it. Most importantly, to be authentic and real and show up.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about, we mentioned ages already, right? We've already talked about our own ages, and we recognize that we are not alone, right? I might sit in this, I'm a axial or whatever, like I'm 79, so I sit on that lovely little cusp between the two. So I feel like depending on which grid, today's grid puts me as a Gen X clearly, but you never know. But we live in a space now where we now know that we've got 5 generations working in this workplace, right? And so not only to the point of what do we need, and I think it goes back to even what Stephanie talked about on her chat, right? Is there's this element now that we've got 5 generations in the workplace, and what baby boomer wants from expects, not just wants, expects from their employer might look very different than what the next generation that's coming in the workplace might expect from their employer. And what we're seeing, right, is the idea that baby boomers are expecting caregiver support, and they're expecting comprehensive healthcare, and they're expecting just enough workplace autonomy, right, to make sure that they can maybe not have to work exactly an 8 to 5 job anymore. That element is brand new to them, but that's what they're looking for. Where our Gen Zers that are entering the workplace now are expecting flexible work, are expecting the option of remote, and are in a place where student loan debt is the highest it's ever been. So they're not really as worried about retirement, where you see that on the front end, and they're more in a place to say, I need money now to make sure that I can live the life I want now. I will worry about retirement later. And that was the conversation I was having with my intern as well. Mike, is there anything when you look at this, as you're thinking about what you guys have designed in terms of what you're offering, is there anything here that sort of has played into the Turnsignl story as well?
Yeah, I think, when we think about different generations, we always talk about Turnsignl in terms of the P's. And so, parents of young teenage drivers, partners, people of color, professionals, right? And when we think about all of those unique things or unique P's, each one of them wants something different. Parents, all they want to do is to make sure that their kids know what to do when they're, being pulled over or when they're in an accident. Caregivers or partners, right? Folks that have to support someone else other than themselves, right? All they want is for when they're not there to have someone there as that calming presence, as that voice, right? And as us busy, professionals, right? That covers all the generations at this point, right? All we're looking for is that peace of mind, whether it's for us, whether it's for our kids, our aunts, our uncles. And one unique thing, and I'll share maybe a little more about this later about Turnsignl is when we offer Turnsignl as a benefit, we offer it for up to 5 loved ones. We don't say family plans. We don't go based off of kind of the IRS definition of dependence. We say it's for anyone that you care about in that moment, anyone you think could use that extra added support when they're in sometimes tense interactions. And so, that's one of the things I think about when I think about these generations right now. We've had to think about it in terms of all the generations across the entire board, right? So, really, I love this generation talk, and I know one of the next questions I'm going to kind of hold off on this, but there's a neat takeaway that I want to share as I'm thinking through these generational values.
All right, Luke, your turn. When you look at this generational shift, I mean, one, you mentioned EAPs, and I was impressed actually when I started to pull the metrics when I saw EAPs was on there, right? I was glad to see that EAPs was a listed element, but I'm curious as you look through this, how does it play into your build out, or even as you can think about how you continue to expand what you guys are doing at Cadre?
Well, I think the persona of, let's just look at baby boomers, millennials, and Generation Z, right? Baby boomers are going to be told what to do. Millennials are going to be asked what to do. And Generation Z is going to ask why. Well, why do I need to do this? Right. So that's just an example of like, how are you going to position yourself accordingly to just the personas of each individual? But as far as like Cadre specifically, this would have been about 4 years ago. And I was listening to Jennifer DeCalbis, the former CEO at Hennepin Healthcare. And I'll never forget, she was on a panel and she said, currently today, all you need to build a door open in healthcare for all. So whether that's mental health, whether that is like what Mychal is talking about, safety, it doesn't matter, but you need to build a doorway in for all individuals to be able to access why. We live in an Amazon world. We live in a Chat GPT world. We want it now. So you got to build the doorway in and make sure that individuals can explore how they want to explore, why they want to, when they want to, what they want to, all of the things. So at Cadre, how did we do that? Our doorway in is a social platform. We are the only peer-to-peer model using social platform for community and mental health-based services. Right? We're the only one that does that. We're the only one that created a social platform to be able to do that. So peers and professionals, vetted peers and professionals can alike create content, form communities, and ultimately, last but not least, is drive one-to-one services, covering everything from women's health to neurodiversity, grief, loss, mental health, stress, professional development. It doesn't matter. We have to build one doorway in for all. And that's like listening to all of our CHROs, directors of HR, VPs of HR. You just got to listen, rip up the playbook, and build what they want and why they want it. And if you can do that, you will be successful. And most importantly, you'll be able to help people, because that's really what it comes down to.
Yep. I like that, the idea of thinking about it as this big open door, that now when we're designing benefits, we have to sort of not just think who are we trying to attract, but we need to consider the entire landscape, right? All generations and all employees need to be considered in that design process. Okay, so another question to the group, and then obviously to you guys as well, but so again, now you're designing. So we already sort of did the belonging element. So if you're designing your company's benefit package, what's one thing that you'd make sure that you would include today that potentially wasn't on the list 5 years ago? I'm going to go first. And I think for me, and it leans into the Luke piece of it, but I think the idea of exactly what I said before is, I think the way that I would design a benefit package today is telling people to make sure that they're not just checking if their doctor's included, but checking to make sure that their therapist is included. I think changing that conversation and reminding people that that language needs to change, that we need to think about who are the people you talk to or that you engage with the most throughout the year and prioritize them first and then work your way backwards. I think is going to be what I would say, because I think that evolution of how often we're talking to people has changed quite a bit in terms of like, again, I would probably prioritize my therapist. I would prioritize my orthodontist for my children's teeth. And I would probably prioritize a dermatologist because of my age. And so those would be the things I would prioritize differently than just having my primary doctor in network. Luke, I'm going to have you go first. What would be, again, only because Mike's got this lovely 5-year thing kind of brewing on him right now. Luke, what would you add? What would be your one thing that you would include that wasn't on the list 5 years ago?
So as a visionary, this one's kind of hard for me, because, living in today and living 5 years from now, the reality is my mind always goes 5 years from now. Right? Like, I'm always thinking, like, my job for the organization is to see around corners, right? See what's happening, what's going on, read, be knowledgeable, all the things, right? So I think what's going to end up happening, and I'll just preface this by saying, like, what I think is going to happen 3 to 5 years from now is everything will be literally in one. Like, everything from email to mental health to services to all of it. Like, there will be one portal that will drive, like, all of your needs literally at one place, one-stop shop, which includes but not limited to communication, video conferencing, all of it, where you could literally one click to your therapist, one click across the board. So back to Erin's point, I agree with you. I think, like, this is a softball for me, because I believe that the most important thing is, like, this is what we tried to do with Cadre. Like, this is why we're building it. Like, this is exactly what we want to do to make sure that it's accessible, it's affordable, it's low mental health cost of care, that the $12 employee and, well, not 12, 14, $15 an hour employee and a $200,000 executive can have the exact same line of benefit. Like,
Yeah.
that's been our goal, to be able to truly have inclusion, to truly have belonging, to have all those things. So thanks for the question. And I would say this is what we're working our tail on to try to provide.
All right. So Mike, as I think about what I know the Turnsignl story is, right? And 5 years, we've used the concept of 5 years for as long as I've been around. Like, what would you do in 5 years from now? 5 years. Nobody would have predicted what 5 years ago looked like in the landscape of COVID, George Floyd, political unrest, all the elements of what has happened over the course of the last 5 years. So with that recognition that we use 5 years as this arbitrary number, but in this context, the arbitrary 5 actually means something a lot more to you. So can you talk a little bit about how you actually, you know what, we're going to jump right in. I'm going to actually, can I have you pause? And then I'm going to have you go right into the next piece of it. Because I think it's interesting. I want to just call it some of the things that are out on the chat, right? Kristen, I love what you said about the nutritionist piece of it, that's one of those things that's not been included. But again, when we consider how the food we eat, if we talk about the things we do the most, the food we eat should also be an element of something that we would maybe potentially want to revisit.
Kristen,
Ollie,
real quick, Erin, I was going to say, Kristen, that was actually going to be mine. It's just around, food, healthy food options, right? And especially as we think about just like rising food cost and rising production costs. And so I think just the ability, I think employers are likely going to need to step into that space so that we have healthy food and healthier workforces as well. So I really love that one.
Yeah. All right. Stephanie, I'm going to tell you, I am not a massage person, but I am here for you, girl. I'm hoping that you see that one hit as well. I want to see that get for you as well. All right. With that, my drum roll. So Mychal, you want to talk about what happened 5 years ago for you in terms of your 5-year story, what you would have done differently 5 years ago today? Almost to the day?
So let's see, five years ago, almost, to the day. My story actually does start even before that. So being born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, back in actually 2017, during a routine traffic stop, Philando Castile tragically lost his life. I played sports with the Castile family, and so I knew them very well. So that hit very close to home. And one of my other founders, Andre Creighton, he and I both grew up. And so we started having conversations way back then, like, what should we do? But we were pretty early on in our careers. And so we kind of put a pause on it. And fast forward to 2020, I had just given birth to my first daughter, who starts kindergarten on Monday. And I'm not going to cry here on this call, at least I'll try not to. And COVID happened, and so things had really slowed down. And then we had this tragic event in May of 2020 that really turned Minneapolis, turned Minnesota, and made Minnesota the epicenter of social change. And in that moment, myself, Jazz Hampton, and Andre Creighton decided to quit our jobs with the blessings of our wives and start what we know today as Turnsignl. And if you think about this moment, I think we can probably all go back to 2020. There were a lot of things happening. Companies, organizations were making statements. They were saying, hey, we're here for our employees. We want to be a part of the change. And so that was a great opportunity for us to launch Turnsignl, this platform that connects people to attorneys during traffic stops and accidents, with a really simple premise: to protect rights, to de-escalate those interactions, and third and most importantly, we wanted to get everyone home safely. And so what that meant for us is having conversations, having dialogue with tons of potential users in that moment, but also having these same intentional conversations with law enforcement. And that was important. Before we even launched Turnsignl, we spoke to over 20 police officers, from boots on the ground officers all the way up to chiefs of police, and said, how do we make our platform as frictionless as possible? And so one cool thing that we do is when you press the button, instead of it being like a Rolodex where it calls one attorney, okay, then the answer calls another attorney, it actually calls all the attorneys in that specific jurisdiction At the same time, because we wanted to speed up those interactions, again, reducing that friction. And so if we think about where we were at in 2020 versus where we're at now, a lot of the things still ring true today. We want to be able to provide that peace of mind for folks as they're driving on the road, whether that be a traffic stop or accident, but we're evolving, right? The landscape is evolving. Employees are asking employers for different things. And so we're layering things like different language supports. And so actually sometime here in the fall, we'll be rolling out the ability to caption in over 37 languages. Really excited about that. Immigration has been another topic that has come up here in recent times. And so being able to provide real-time support when folks have questions about their immigration status and take some of that burden off of administrators and off of the leaders that are being tasked day in and day out with coming up with new resources. And so now we're excited in 2026 to be able to offer immigration support. And so it's all been this journey, and Luke's talked about this. It's relentless feedback from your consumers and really trying to stay ahead of the game and really pushing forward with people first, right? And people are the most important part of what we do. And I'm really excited to continue to see what Turnsignl will look like 5 years from now.
Yeah. All right, Luke, do you want to talk a little bit about your founder story? So again, you've said a little bit on the front end, right? Coming out of your previous role and seeing the need. But do you want to talk a little bit about your 5-year, maybe more of an aspirational state? Do you want to talk a little bit about your founder forward story?
Yeah. So my wife and I were sitting during COVID, much like you all, and we helped Peloton's market cap go like that. So we had a bike and a tread. This is a true story. So it'd be like one of the kids, me, and then M, right? And so we were all into this. And so put a lot of miles on the bike, put a lot of miles on the treadmill, much like I'm sure a lot of you all did, or whatever that looked like for you during the pandemic. But what we found was, I would listen to the individual. Maybe my individual was Alex Toussaint, which I loved, and she liked Jess Sims or somebody, right? And so I would listen to M and I'd be like, my gosh, these individuals are motivational, inspirational, and I just love what they're talking about. Like, can do hard things or whatever they talk. There's always something and a good note. And I'm like, what if we created this? But forget the bike. But what if we created this, and we had this capacity to go live, have pre-recorded content, deliver communities of choice, and last but not least is, that Alex Toussaint guy. Well, you could actually get him on a one-to-one service model for coaching, therapeutic intervention, you name it. So that was kind of like the vision and the idea. And it was a big one. It was a really, really big one. 5 years ago, napkin in a dream, right? And then ended up turning into, all right, let's take action. And so, you fast forward to today, we have 176 people that have now created content on the app. We have 30 some individuals that go live every single week, which is amazing. And their stories and they're sharing, peers, professionals, doctors of psychology, psychiatrists, therapists, licensed social workers, you name it. We partner with some incredible organizations. For example, St. Croix Hospice in our backyard. Their grief and doulas go live on our platform and share, which is amazing. So it's like, imagine if, my son with Mr. Beast could actually have Mr. Beast in a one-to-one. So it's like that influencer-esque role, but we call them Cadre contributors. And the Cadre contributors then ultimately drive content, have group coaching sessions, individual sessions, and you can book everything literally right through the app. So it's like if Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter had a baby, but it's all for mental health and wellness for your people. And so my job is to create a non-stigma, destigmatized area. You can come in completely anonymous, find what you want when you want it, from suicide prevention to grief and loss to professional development to anxiety, depression. We needed to create a hub for all. And so some individuals, and we created a radio station of programming and when people go live each day. So like Sunday, for example, is recovery for our sober friends. Monday is all about professional development. Wednesday, mental well-being. Thursday, caregiver day. So we have every day is a specific day. And it's just been this really exciting journey to be able to now work with some of the most amazing corporations and companies in our backyard and support organizations like Lakeside, you name it. So we're grateful, we're lucky, and we're blessed. And this is very personal to me. So this is everything. And I want to make sure that, back to like what I said earlier, is I don't think our jobs are the hard part. I think life is. And life's going to throw you a lot of curveballs. And what are you going to do? And our job is to be there for you when you need them.
Yeah. I want to just sort of, I mean, obviously, I think what you guys have both, what you're both building, I mean, part of the reason I asked you here, right, is, I mean, I think there's both the need and the gap that's needed to be filled in terms of what you guys are doing. And I think that there's a timeliness to it. All right. So now I'm going to throw a question to you that I didn't prepare you for. All right. Aside from where you guys sit, are there other benefits? So you guys, I think about it through the lens of the fact that you guys are you're around this space all the time, right? Whether it's conferences or sitting in talking to other benefit brokers or sitting in employee benefit meetings. Are there other benefits that you're seeing in the landscape today that you would put into that benefits that belong category? Mychal, I know I'm throwing this at you sort of off script, but I'd be curious to get your POV here.
Yeah, and so it actually ties back to the question around like what benefits would you add today, and I think of one in particular. So this is a little bit of a plug for Route One, which is an organization founded by a dear friend of mine, Marcus Carpenter, that focuses on Black, Brown, and Indigenous farmers. And what they're doing is they're creating this concept of kind of modular farms. And what they're doing is also bringing this fresh food, this fresh produce directly to businesses and employers and offering them healthier options, right? And so I think that's an amazing benefit. So the organization, again, is Route One. They're based here. I think their farms are actually out in the West Metro in Loretto, Minnesota. And they're really doing some cool things. And so as you're thinking about your benefits, you're thinking about food and health and healthy options, definitely give Route One a shout.
Yeah, thanks. Luke, what about you? Is there any other, aside from the landscape that we've talked about, is there anyone else that we should be thinking about in this vein of belonging?
Well, no, number one, Route One. How cool is that? Thanks for sharing. I didn't even know about that.
I hadn't heard it. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Number two here, I got to give it up to Turnsignl. I love what they're doing. I think it's amazing. So that's checkbox one. I do believe that there's some really good individualized niche benefits that are doing some cool things. Gem Health with sleep, Bend for youth mental health, Maven, I think is phenomenal. So, the more you're around the space and the more you learn, I think what ends up happening is the gravitation of the people that really care kind of come together. Mm-hmm. And they kind of come together and form like a bond of like, oh, you guys get it. And you guys get it for the right reasons. And it's super cool to be in that conversation with those individuals that are doing this because they know that like humanity is going to rely on us to make the workplaces better. Yeah. And we need to do that. And we need to do that. And we owe it to each other to do it. And so this is something that I'm, like I said, very, very passionate about because we all have it in us to make benefits the plus one of what the most important thing is making people feel seen, heard, supported at work, because the rest of it will work itself out.
All right. So then I feel like that's a great segue to this last question. So again, we're going to let the chat answer this one. All right, Kristen, drop the mic moment. All right, so finish this sentence. So this can be a one-word answer. This can be I don't know, I mean, if you want to write a diatribe, go for it. But a great benefits package should feel like blank.
Oh, I'd love to go first. I'd love to go first on this one.
Bring it.
And so this is the one I was holding for a little while. I think a great benefits package should feel like family. And the reason why I say that is I'm thinking about the 5 generations that we have in the workforce. There's no better semblance of like family or the holiday table than having 5 generations of people with unique needs sitting at that table, 5 generations of people that you care about. And you have to care about each one of those individuals in a different way. And so when I think about, family and I think about these 5 generations, that is what benefits should feel like. It should feel like safety and security. It should feel you know, like happiness, like joy. I see friendship, protection, right? That's what family feels like to me in those moments. And you should be able to be sometimes a little bit vulnerable in those spaces, right? And so I know a lot of organizations will have to rework how folks share information. But again, you can be vulnerable in these moments as well. And so family is the thing I believe that a great benefit that package should feel like.
I love it. All right, Luke, what's your fill in the blank here answer?
A great benefits package should feel like this. It should feel like this call. It should feel like, no, I mean, this is what it should really feel like. This is what life should feel like. That you can come to a place, share, be open. There might be disagreements. There might be 20 different companies here together, all trying for a common good. Like this is what it should feel like.
Oh.
Like that there's somebody here who cares, that started this on the side, that wants to do this because they want to inform, educate, prevent, you name it. So kudos to you, Erin. So it should feel exactly like this. This is what it should feel like.
I love it. And I love those answers. My immediate answers were things like accessible. Like I think the other part too, that I just want to make sure that as we're thinking about it too, is this element of it needs to feel like it's not this big thing that you don't have access to. I think the concept of accessibility to me is what I want a great benefit package should feel like. It shouldn't feel like that's this, one sheeter, one time of year conversation. It shouldn't feel obligatory. It should feel something that feels accessible. I love some of the other words and statements that are coming in. Everything from personalized to me, to support, to effortless. I love that word too. Inclusion, safe and protected, unconditional love, abundance, partnership. I mean, all just really great words. And thank you thank you both for obviously continuing to share your voice and share the amazing work that you guys are doing. I'm going to just close this bad boy out, I think. Is there anything else? Any other last statements from either of you before I sort of do a quick pitch for both of your products, as well as talk about where we're headed with Lakeside in September? I like thumbs up. I will take thumbs ups. Equitables. Sorry, Marie, you got a good one there. All right. As I promised I would, in the follow-up material, you'll get the link to the recording, you'll get the link to the deck and the material for you to be able to use and leverage at the same time. I will also be sending you information on Cadre. So I will get you some information and links to what Luke's team at Cadre is doing. So if you haven't already had an opportunity to look into what Cadre is providing, even if you're just looking at it as your own individual level, it's worth looking at. It is a very cool, different way to engage in a way that we're already used to engaging. We're already way familiar with DMs and live streams and watching. I mean, my kids watch way too many YouTube recordings already, but it is in the vein of what accessible looks like. To me, a Cadre is the definitive of what accessibility is. So to me, make sure you're taking a look at Cadre. And then similar in nature, again, it's been around for 5 years. I'm always surprised when I bring up Turnsignl and somebody doesn't know what it is, because then it means I get to get geeky on your behalf, Mike, about this really cool thing that came out of a really important time that then has now created this beautiful ecosystem. When I think of how excited you guys were to talk about having a couple attorneys just here in our own backyard that had sort of raised their hand to be a part of it, and then to think forward to what it's become on this much more national level in a very short period of time is incredible. And it speaks to both the need as well as to the the approach, right? It's something that feels like it's also something that people can access in a way that doesn't feel scary. It feels, and at the same time sort of feels communicative with on both sides, right? It plays to both the police as well as it plays to the person that's having that moment of need and curiosity at that time. So thank you guys both for what you're doing. We'll make sure we get all this stuff in your guys' hands. And then with that, just mark your calendars. This will also come in the follow-up material. Will be the link to what we're doing in September. So on September 16th, Caroline's, which if you haven't met her, come, because I will tell you, Luke, I mean, honestly, it was like you and my coffee in a virtual call. Like we jumped in and we had an hour-long call booked to talk about Lakeside Chats, and I think we spent 6 minutes talking about Lakeside Chats because she's just the most approachable, beautiful human, who wrote a really great book on the concept of mental health and kind of mental health in the workplace. But we're going to talk about burnout. It's a topic that I feel like it gets brought up a lot on these Lakeside Chats, but I haven't done a fully dedicated event specifically talking about burnout, and the concept of why burnout is feeling normal and why the hell it shouldn't feel normal. And so we want to bring that conversation to you guys on September 16th. Same bat time, same bat channel. So we'll see you back on a Teams call at 9 a.m. third Tuesday in September. And with that, thanks you guys. This was awesome. Thank you for those of you that engaged in today's chat. I look forward to keeping you guys involved. Mike, Luke, if I could hug you, I would. I'm hugging you. How do I do that? Is it Eva or Ava? I'm going to continue down the way.
Eva.
Eva, thank you for sharing him with us today. And thank you for being on as well. He does lead a cool life, but he's doing cool things and he deserves it. So I'm excited to get a chance to have you here to see him in his glory as well. Thanks, you guys. We'll hop off. Have a great rest of your week.